Yo, 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 what is up, YouTube? Today we're going to be going into an... God, I can't speak. Yo, 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 what is up, YouTube? Today we're going to be going into another video about the trade deadline. These are my top 15 players at the trade deadline, where I think they're going to go. Maybe these guys stay as well, who knows? Let's get into it, starting off with an Angel. Now, Joe Adell, what an interesting player, truly. 27 years of age, for 110 pick. It could have gone differently, man. It really could have. Now, very interesting stats on Joe Adell. You know, last year obviously breaks out with 37 and 98, 778 OPS. Pretty freaking good. Now, the Angels don't choose to sell him. They chose to sell Taylor Ward off at the winter meetings last year for Grayson Rodriguez. Hasn't really worked out, but Ward is also a free agent. Joe Adell will be a free agent in 1.5 years, so the end of 2027 season. But this year, 16 homers, 62 RBIs, 695 OPS. Now, his slugging is down from last year. I mean, this is a guy who really doesn't walk ever. He's not a very... 15 walks, 33 last year. Just not a very impressive number at all. Now, he's got a couple suitors, like I talked about last time. And two of the guys I said the Angels would trade, or should trade, Logan O'Hoppe, Seth, two guys who had no options left, did get moved. Not for much. A guy apparently the Angels think is a top 10 prospect in their own system. Kind of promising, but Joe Adell, I think, is going to be moved to the Yankees. Now, if we're going to go into the Yankees top 30 here, Yankees top 30 prospects, there's a couple guys, obviously, the big names, obviously, are going to be, kind of just out of reach. Now, Dax Kilby, obviously, would be like the ideal if the Angels were going to trade, Zach Neto there. If we're going to go, talk about Joe Adell, a big name that's been mentioned. I believe they did trade him last year for Oswaldo Peraza, Wilberson De Pena, who has been really, really, really good since they traded him. 1088 OPS in rookie ball, 16 homers, 67 RBIs, already got called up to single A. Now this is a 19-year-old. This guy's got a 2030 ETA. If it's not him, then a pitcher or something like that, I think it's going to be be a guy around the 12 to 17 range that the Angels get for Joe Adell. They said this deal was nearly done earlier, likely to be done before the Angels play tomorrow or the Yankees play tomorrow. The Yankees need severe outfield help. Aaron Judge, hurt. Cody Bellinger, hurt. Spencer Jones, Jason Dominguez, Trent Grisham, just not really cutting it. They're trying to get through with not a lot. Now, they, like I said, Joe Adell, 62 RBIs. He would see a boost, in that Yankee Stadium. It is a smaller ballpark. It is a hitter's ballpark. And I think Adell's a guy who the Yankees really need at this time. They need any outfielder, but I would say with 99% confidence that the Angels trade Joe Adell to the New York Yankees tomorrow. Now, moving on to my next player. Now, another Angel. Just a different one. Now, this guy is Zach Neto. And Neto, has had a weird season compared to the last 2 years where he had a 5-1 WAR, 5-3 WAR, pretty much the same OPS, OPS plus of 114. The real difference is his defensive WAR has seen a very significant drop. Now, he's not a terrible defender. He's been a mediocre defender at a .9, but the last 2 years, 2.2, 2.1, pretty good defender, and that, that builds a lot of that WAR up. 3.9, 3.9, 2.6. He might end up pretty close to the 3.9, but the defensive WAR is also what's going to affect him not having a 5 WAR again. Now, this is a guy who can steal a lot of bases, 30, 16. This year, not as efficient. still hitting the ball pretty freaking, his slugging percentage, 433, still pretty good, especially for a shortstop. Doubles, tripling more now too. I mean, the homer power is even higher as well. And now he's walking at a higher number than he ever has. This is pretty good. I mean, this is a guy who is playing in one of the worst lineups there is in baseball. I think Neto is a game changer for a team like, the Yankees. Again, could be in this discussion. I don't think the Angels are going to go after, like I said, Dax Kilby, most likely the guy they get from the Yankees. I think the Red Sox, probably not going to be the team that trades for him. I think the team is the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, I think the Rays trade one of these catchers. Angels just got rid of their, the guy that was supposed to be the catcher of the future. Flewelling, Fleming in here. You got a lot of guys, Melton's a little older. I don't think that's a guy the Angels are going to be going after. A guy like Daniel Pierce. Flewelling's the main guy, I think. I would say with 80% confidence, Zach Neto is going to the Tampa Bay Rays. Now, number 3. Another Angel, coincidentally enough. Now, this is going to be Reed Detmers. Now, Detmers, Soriano, both very interesting players. These are the next two guys on my list. Detmers has had a very good year, last year in the bullpen. These damn ads, man. He started his career really well. Still decent. Had a pretty bad year that year. Went to the bullpen last year. Back in the rotation. He's been one of the better starters in baseball this year. The 1.096 whip, 3.36 FIP. I mean, strong strikeout per 9 rate, strong, walks per 9 rate, hits per 9, I mean, homers per 9, right? These are very encouraging numbers, too. It just shows he's been a little unlucky. That happens. Dylan Cease had a 4.6 ERA last year. He has a 2.5 for the Blue Jays this year. That's just, how baseball is, man. It's an evil sport. It really is. Now, Reed Detmers has, decent amount of years in control. He's controlled till 2029. He's a free agent. Now, the Rays, a team that just lost Shane McClanahan to injury, could be an option. Could they package him and Neto in this deal? Get more, maybe Fleming too, just like with Flewelling. I think that's a real possibility. I would say, the second team on my list would probably be the White Sox. Like I said before, I don't think Hagen Smith is a guy that the Angels are going to be interested in. Billy Carlson, Bonnemer, maybe too. Foskey, another guy. These are just Angels are trying to build for the future. Detmers, having a good year could be a big benefit to a team who's really struggled in the starting pitching department this year. Eric Fetty, Noah Schultz has been thrown into the lion's den. Sean Burke's been good. Davis Martin's been good. But not a lot else besides that. This would be a big trade for a team who's currently first place in their own division. So I think this is a team that could really use him. Or maybe, their cross-city rival, the Chicago Cubs. Now, I think most of these guys are going to be on the table. I think Ayers, probably a guy who's most likely going to be in this deal. I think, really anybody could be part of it. I think Matt Shaw is a very likely candidate to be an Angel. But the Cubs are going to be my favorite here. I would say this is about 60%. And now, a lot of that just comes down to, I think Soriano could be the guy traded. Detmers stays. I don't think they're going to trade all 3 of their top guys. You know what I mean? But if we look at Soriano's stats here too. Now Soriano, same thing, same scenario. Soriano, 3.29 ERA. 1.252. WHIP. Again, great numbers. I mean, his homers per 9 always low. He does walk a lot of people though. Strikeouts per nine, great number at 9.3, the best of his career. I mean, even a 3.8 FIP at 3.29. I mean, he started the season really well, but he's continued to, be really good, honestly. I think he actually does lead the league in walks, which is not very good. When he was doing really well to start the season, he did stop walking players, which is actually such a great thing. There's so many ads on this site sometimes, man. It's actually aggravating. But at 3.29, 2.7 WAR, this is a big benefit. Again, the Cubs and White Sox are going to be two teams who are going to be really in this. I'd put this probably, I would say 30% that Soriano gets traded, because I think Detmers is going to be the guy that goes. Because I think Detmers is going to be the guy that gets the Angels more, and I think that's just why he's not going to get traded. Now, the Padres need MLB ready arms. Soriano could be another guy they could be interested in with years of control. They want to, be decent. Like I said, the White Sox, the Rays, again. I don't think the Dodgers are going to make a move for him, although I do think they're going to get a starting pitcher. Just not sure it's going to be them. The Twins, again, if the Twins are going to buy, they did just buy AJ Minter before I started the video. They did just trade 2 prospects for him. So that's the second time the Twins have bought a reliever. So pretty interesting, to be honest, that they're going to be buying. Maybe they go for guys with control. Joe Ryan was rumored to get traded. Ryan Jeffers was rumored to get traded. Buxton even. But who knows, man? Who freaking knows, honestly. What I was saying. Now, my next player here, Otto Lopez. Now, this is a guy who's 27 years of age, who has been DFA'd 2 times in his career. Kind of just pretty impressive, to be honest, that, he's turned himself into a 5.5 WAR player, and it's not even August yet. Leading the league in hits. He was in the lead for average, 853 OPS, great numbers. I mean, last year, 672 OPS, but this is a great defender. 2.1 WAR. Offensive WAR was actually decent last year still. 1577, 15 steals even. I mean, he doesn't seem to walk a ton. He's walked even less this year. But a 490 slugging would be a big benefit, as he does lead the league in doubles as well, with 27. He was an all-star, like I said. 4.8 offensive WAR. Like, he's always been a good defender, and now he's kind of just putting that offense together. I do worry about a player who's been DFA'd twice. Now, a team like the Red Sox they did just bring in Curtis Mead, who has been DFA'd in his career before, too. I believe it was by the Tampa Bay Rays. So, doesn't mean a team can't go for him. I think any of these teams that need a shortstop, like Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay probably could trade, a decent prospect for him. I think, the other team, I think the team he will go to is the Boston Red Sox. I think with, a young pitching prospect, a young hitter, probably like, Azakar, Witherspoon, something like that. I think for Otto Lopez would make a ton of sense. He doesn't have, a ton of control time on him. I mean, service time of 2, I believe, so free agent 2030. Similar to Neto. Neto's 2029. Lopez is even less. Or even more, I should say. But, these are some pretty great stats he's putting up this year, and it's pretty impressive. And he's a guy, again, the Marlins could sell high on. He could get them back a really good return because he's a good defender. Just a really good player this year. Again, I think it is a risk, and I think it could backfire on a team who goes and buys high for him, because he could be a byproduct of just the Marlins park. I mean, it's been done before with trades at the deadline, especially with a team like Boston, who has consistently bought less reliable players at the deadline. But I would honestly say with pretty good confidence. I think this is a 75% chance he goes to Boston. I really like this fit. They're a shortstop needy team. They need good defense. They've always struggled with good defense, literally since Xander Bogaerts left. I think this is a perfect fit. Now, on to my next guy here. And this is going to be another pretty good average hitter. And it is Mr. Luis Arias, who they did sell high on, the Marlins, before. And now he's playing in San Francisco. 3.4 WAR. And he's actually been a better defender for the first time in years. Unbelievable, to be honest. First time in 3 years. He was an absolute travesty on defense. Ron Washington fixed him. A 3.5 WAR, his best number since Miami. He never put up anything great with San Diego, although, he wasn't even an all-star. I mean, he only played a year and a half there, left in free agency. 817 OPS. I mean, he leads the league in average, 331. 4 homers, 43 RBIs. Obviously not a guy who's going to hit for a lot of power, but the doubles, the triples, that Giants Park is a beautiful, beautiful thing. I mean, his slugging at 451, 366 on his OPS, on his OBP. I mean, that's way better, man. 25 walks at this stage. I mean, look at the last 2 years, bro. 24, 34. 131 OPS plus, which would be the best number of his career. And I think, there's a couple teams that could use this guy. You could go with even the Red Sox again, too. But I think the most likely, and I think the team that is going to get him, is going to be the Texas Rangers. Now, the Rangers did just buy a reliever of the Angels. Now, the Rangers could go in for a double move, triple move, who knows, really. There is a lot of guys up for sale on this Giants team. This Giants team, has three starters they want to get rid of. Ray and Miley. I don't think they're going to get rid of Webb. I mean, they wanted to get rid of Hauser. I think that would be the other one, but I think, relievers is more of what Texas needs. As we've seen with Silseth. Now, Arias isn't going to fetch them an unbelievable prospect. As, we take a look here, he's going to be free agent next year. 1 year, 12 mil. Now, I would expect them to get probably a guy from 9 to 13 back. Maybe 14. 9 to 14 back in return. I think, a guy who could be MLB ready, Santos, Calle, something like that. A guy who could go to San Fran and actually be playing pretty early in his career. San Fran is a pretty bad team. They're in a pretty weak spot. As, manager, it's been 5 years since they made the playoffs. Bob Melvin couldn't do it. He looked so good for the Athletics all those years where he was bringing them to playoffs with weak teams, trading players, still making it. It's been a while since then. And now, Tony Vitello leaves from Tennessee. Doesn't look like he's going to be the savior either. Now, the next guy is going to be his teammate, Mr. Robbie Ray. Now, Robbie Ray's had a resurgence. He's had a resurgence too, and he is in the last year of his deal, 5-year, $115 million that he signed after his Cy Young season with the Toronto Blue Jays in 2021. Seattle, he was there 2 years. He played 13 games. Or sorry, that's not right. 33 games. I don't know why I read the wrong thing. 33 games, and he had a 1.8 WAR after a 6.9 WAR season. This is why you don't pay players who have been inconsistent their entire career. Now, he did strike out 212 that first year in Seattle. But he just wasn't, didn't put up the same number. 2.84, but he was a little lucky. 3.69 FIP, a 4.16 the year after, 3.71, and then he just was terrible in his one start, got injured, Came back the following year pretty late in the season. Didn't pitch very well. Now, last year he came in 3.65 ERA. You know, he had 73 intentional walks, 186 strikeouts, which is really good. Close to what he was at before in 32 starts. Now, he did have a serious injury, obviously, so it is, we're going to take that into account. But he was an all-star, still had a good strikeout per nine number, 11.5, hard to repeat, obviously. In his early days, in Arizona, other places, he was a pretty high strikeout guy. Even this year, 3.16 ERA, again, today, 6 innings, probably his final start. I would reckon it is his final start. And he only allowed 1 run against the Padres. Again, another disappointing game for San Diego. And, 4.49 FIP, not going to be great. Shows he is a little lucky this year. But a 3.16 ERA is still going to get him bought by a good team. Probably, could go a couple. Fuck. And this is going to get him bought by a good team. Now, there's a couple different ways this guy could go. Now, I would go and reckon that a team like the Cubs, once again, are going to be in for Robbie Ray, a team that needs quality pitching. Colin Rea, David Peterson, Assad, Horton is injured. They already DFA'd Taillon. I don't think you could have a more obvious need. Like I said with the White Sox, another team with a serious need. The Brewers could be in on them. The Brewers should be in on Skubal. The Brewers should be in on Ray. They need some experienced pitching in the playoffs. They can't let the Dodgers just run all over them because they're using, Logan Henderson with, 8-10 starts in his MLB career in a playoff game, or Brandon Sproat. I think, these are teams that could make a trade. The Brewers have unbelievable riches of prospects. I mean, their top 7 is fucking ridiculous, dude. I mean, the Giants need catcher. Long term, Susak could be the answer. I don't think so. Brady Ebel, any of these guys in here really going to help. Probably a guy around 13 to 17 is going to be the likeliness. I think the Brewers, super possible. Again, I think, the Cubs could be in for a double swoop. I think the Cubs could be in for him. I think the Cubs could be in for, Detmers. I think the Cubs could be in for Skubal. I don't think it's a crazy thing to say. This is a team that needs a lot of pitching. They need a lot of help if they're going to win in the playoffs. This is a team, 4th in the NL with weak pitching. Their bullpen stink. I mean, they could make a deal with Ray, get some help in the bullpen too. There's some decent guys in the Giants pen. Killian, Henches, who was good for the Guardians for a couple of years. These are very possibly cheaper ideas rather than Detmers or Skubal, who you don't, Skubal, you don't know what's going to happen next year. Is he going to resign? Is he going to go to the frickin' Dodgers? We hope not, okay? We frickin' hope not. Now, on to these next two players. These next two players, as I was saying, we're going to go to a guy who just got traded not very long ago. This is Mr. Freddie Peralta, who is going to be a free agent at the end of the season, having a very, very disappointing season after a very good season in Milwaukee. Now, Peralta had a 5.5 WAR last year. Even again, not very good in the playoffs, as he always is pathetic in the playoffs. 204 Ks, Cy Young 5, 3.64 FIP, and a 1.075 WHIP. Now, his hits per 9 has jumped up 3.2. His strikeouts per 9 has jumped down. This is just not not great for what they gave up. Sproat, Jet Williams. The Mets season has just punched them back. Now, Peralta was always decent. He is a guy who's going to, you know, walk a decent amount of batters. Same with Soriano. But this is a guy who could be a pretty cheap option. He's got 1 year left. The Mets are unlikely going to re-sign him. Now, I think the most likely spot for him is the Tampa Bay Rays. This is a team that just lost Shane McClanahan to injury today. Who knows what that's going to be? This is a guy with a lot of injuries in his career. The Rays are great, a perfectly run business, really. I think that this is a team that knows they can compete this year, and they can fix this guy too, Freddie Peralta, who's obviously seen serious regression from this year to last year, and even the rest of his career, really. So, and really, I think you could trade, Xavier Isaac. I think is a perfect player for for Tampa Bay to trade, to New York. Pete Alonso just left. The Rays. I mean, I guess they have Yandy Diaz, but they haven't traded him yet, so I don't think it's going to be happening this year either. When they're, the best team in the American League. I think this is a perfect trade. Isaac for Peralta. Something like that, could be really beneficial. The Mets have, Luke Weaver, Devin Williams. The Rays could use bullpen help. Luke Weaver would be really, really good for Tampa. When they're pitching, Kimbrel, Brian Baker's been really good. Don't get me wrong, and that was a great trade last year too. But this is a team that could use more help, more experience. Peralta and Weaver have pitched in the playoffs before as well. I think that's a pretty good trade they could make. So I would say about 80%. I would say that's likely. Now moving on to my next guy, with Clay Holmes, another Met. Now the Mets are blessed with some riches. They do have a lot of players to move. Even though they are one of the worst teams in the sport this year. Clay Holmes has been transformed as a starter, 2.1 WAR last year, and a 1.9 this year in 9 starts. 1.9 in 9 starts is pretty freaking good. His 3.22 FIP, still pretty good. 1.1 WHIP. I mean, that's pretty good, man. Now, this is a guy, he was a closer for the Yankees, sold a lot of games for sure, and then he left the Yankees, became a starter with the Mets. 31 starts last year, pretty damn good first year as a starter. Obviously, you're going to have some up and downs. This is another guy who, player option 2027. Who knows where he's going to end up or what he's going to do with that. But the numbers look pretty good. If you even go, 3.26 in 2 years with the Mets, most teams are going to take that who need pitching help. Now, I think the most likely team here is going to be the Chicago White Sox. I think, he'd be a good fit. I think, Detmers would be the other one. Like I said earlier, I think Detmers makes a ton of sense here too. Just a team who needs, good pitching help. Now, they would like to get guys with more control, for sure. That's why I said Detmers was more likely. I think, they have a lot to give, MLB ready arms, David Sandlin, Adams, something like that. Holmes, they could re-sign. He is only, 33? Pretty close to coming back, apparently, so I think this could be a good deal. Even, Schweitzer even, too. I think this makes sense for both teams. The Mets want, MLB ready arms. They want to be good, Juan Soto, Lindor, you're already paying them over $1 billion, I think. So another spot where Luke Weaver could go, Devin Williams could go. This is a team that struggled with the pitching. They are the best team in the AL Central for now. But remember last year. Remember, the Tigers choked that away, and the Guardians won the division. Obviously, since then, the Tigers have just continued to plummet. Uh, Unfortunately, you know, I don't like seeing that. The Tigers are a likable team. When the Tigers are good, it's more fun. But I would say this one's a little, probably down on the percentage. I would say around 55% likely here. Now, moving on, I'm going to two players on this one. Now, two players I think are going to go here, and I'm going to say Kevin Gausman would be the first one. Now, this is a weird one because Kevin Gausman has been good for what 6 years. He kind of revitalized himself in Cincinnati a little bit, then went to San Fran. Had been really good in San Fran. San Fran 2 years, 3.02 FIP, a 3 ERA, a 1.057 WHIP in 45 games and 43 starts. That's pretty impressive, man. After he was pretty bad in Baltimore, not very good in Atlanta, and then got a fat contract. We can see it up here, 5 years, 110 mil. And it's not like he's just been unlucky too. He's got the most losses in the MLB with a 3.58 FIP. This is just how the sport is sometimes, man. Last year, 3.59 ERA. We can keep going. History in Toronto, 3.63 ERA in 147 starts. This is a guy who's making 33, 30, 31, 31, 31, 32 starts, and he's going to be healthy again this year. This is a guy, last year of his contract, going to be at a buy lowish because they're trying to get rid of him. This is a guy who, has kind of just fought through a lot of adversity in his career. I mean, he was a failed first-round pick who the Orioles traded away and kind of just revitalized himself in San Francisco into a good deal with Toronto. I can't even speak. And now I think this is a chance for a team to get him, not only him, but Dalton Varsho as well. Now, Dalton Varsho has always been a good defender. He's dropped off in his defense this year, unfortunately. 0.4 defensive WAR, and his health has been better this year. Since they traded, Moreno and Lourdes Gurriel. He started off really well, decent last year, 2.7 WAR, and now a 1.2 WAR this year. I mean, wow, 548 slugging last year. He had 20 homers, 55 RBIs in 71 games. This year, 7 homers, 26 RBIs. Just not very, very, very good. Now, his walks are weirdly up. Kind of back to his career norm-ish. It looks like he might be on pace for his best OBP since his rookie season. But his OPS plus is down 120 to 88. Obviously not like a full season there, but a 700 OPS, an 883. This he was always a good defender, and that kind of just made his value super high. This is the whole point of trading for him. He is only 29 years old. Again, he is going to be a free agent in 2027. So, he's going to be, he's got a 1-year, $10 million contract right now. He's going to be a guy who's not on a big deal or anything. A guy they kind of want to get rid of. And it looks like, one team is in for both of them, and that's going to be the Philadelphia Phillies. As Dave Dombrowski is always trying to win, this is a very, weird Phillies year. They started the season 12 games under 500. They fired their manager. They hired Don Mattingly. Rob Thompson also, led this team to 3 division titles in a row, I believe. And now Don Mattingly has them 7 games over 500. I don't know. Yeah, this is a weird team because this is a team that needs pitching help. One, um, they failed to replace Ranger Suarez with Andrew Painter, who just hasn't been good yet. But that's okay. He's only a rookie. It's fine. But it is not as fine when Aaron Nola it just isn't good anymore. Wheeler, great. Sanchez, great. Luzardo, pretty good. That's a really good 3 in a playoff series. Aaron Nola is not touching the freaking starting pitching rotation in a playoff series. You need another starter. So Gausman would be the go-to guy, right? We take another look here. Like Gausman, just super unlucky this year. That's a nearly one ERA difference from the FIP to the freaking ERA. He's still striking out guys. 9.1 strikeout per 9. I mean, that's his best number in 3 years, right? His walks, a little up. Hits per 9 up. It's just not a guy deserving of a 4.51 ERA, and I think he could be a guy who could be really good in Philadelphia. Now, neither of these guys, as they're both, going to be free agents, neither one's going to cost them a lot. The Blue Jays would like to be relevant. I think a guy, who's closer to being promoted would be ideal. Moises Chasse could be the answer here. A 23-year-old. I don't know how he's going to get in the Phillies rotation personally, as they do have Gage Wood and Andrew Painter as their next 2 starters. Zach Wheeler obviously wants to retire after next year, but then Chasse would be 25 by the time Wheeler is done in the MLB. I just don't see that working. I think this is a guy who, they could trade for both of them. Probably something else, around Gabe Craig. I mean, this guy's 25 and it's high A. That's kind of impressive. And really anything. Heredia even too. Something like that would work in this deal. Now, moving on to the next guy here. I'm going to go to Mr. Ryan Jeffers. Now, Ryan Jeffers has had a weird year, as they were a lock to trade him. And now they keep winning out of nowhere. They have become a 500 ball club, and they just traded for AJ Minter. As I said before, Ryan Jeffers is in a career year. 928 OPS, a 158 OPS plus. I mean, 397 OBP, but with a 531 slugging. Now, he's only played 47 games, but it definitely looking like his best year ever, statistically. 9-35. I mean, his best year was 2023, and he was only a part-time catcher that year. This year, he's just, he's 31 strikeouts in 47 games. Not that bad. He hasn't played a ton. He is back from injury now, as well. I mean, you could see up here, 1 for 3, 3 for 5, 1 for 4, 1 for 5, 1 for 4. I mean, not bad. Not a great defender, but his offense has always been the benefit of having him anyway. And this is another guy who, is going to be a free agent at the end of the year, 29 years of age. Could be a guy you extend at the end of the year as well. I think this is a really, really weird scenario here, because this is a team who is at 500, who just traded for AJ Minter, who is obviously, pretty old. He's 32. We can even take a look at AJ Minter as well. AJ Minter, has been around the block, right? 32 years old, free agent at the end of the season, having another good year. This guy's a pretty consistent pitcher his entire career. 2.35 ERA, one WHIP, pretty good. Obviously the FIP is at a 4, But this is a team that thinks they can push for that playoff spot. They're not far off at all. And I think, it doesn't make a lot of sense to buy him or Tommy Nance if you're going to move Ryan Jeffers. Now, Jeffers is the ideal for the Yankees because let's be real. Hunter Goodman's unavailable. Langoliers out for the season, wasn't available to begin with. Let's be real now. Could the Yankees still get him? I don't think so. I think there's a 10% chance he gets traded, and it would only be to the Yankees, I think. I just don't see them deciding to sell in the matter of 4 days after they buy AJ Minter. There's another Cade Smith too. Oh wow, that's actually interesting. I just don't think it's gonna happen unless they get an offer they can't refuse, and that would probably take one of the Yankees' top 5 to 7 prospects, which I just don't think is gonna happen. As Brian Cashman doesn't know what he's doing. If the Yankees are going to go for a catcher, it's more likely going to be somebody like Liam Hicks or somebody lesser. Now, on to my last 3 players on here. And the first is a guy who is a free agent in 2031. Arbitration eligible 2028. And this is because he played overseas in Japan the last 3 seasons. Now, Foster Kiffin has had a weird career as he was a first-round pick in 2014. He was an all-star this year after coming back from Japan in his first year. He has a 3.8 WAR, a 2.76 ERA, a 1.032, WHIP, 3.94 FIP is still decent. And like I said, he was an all-star. It's kind of hard to, compare his stats against anything, but not letting a lot of home runs up. I mean, he does walk a decent amount of batters. Not a lot of hits per 9 either. Not bad. We look here, 113 strikeouts in 124 innings. I believe his contract should be on here too. But, yeah, like I said, earliest free agent 2031. Kind of crazy, man, to think about that. And this is a guy who has a lot of years of control, and I was talking about this earlier. I think the team who needs guys with years of control like this is the Chicago White Sox. This is their time to get a guy who has a ton of control on his contract. Now, like Detmers, like him, I think these are the 2 best possible candidates out there. Because you're probably going to give up a top 7 prospect. You're probably going to give up, McDougal. You're probably going to give up, another top 15 prospect for a guy who's got a lot of years of control and has a pretty good year, and you really don't have to pay him until he's, 36? I don't think you're going to pay him at that time. Maybe they sign a contract extension this year. Who knows? But this would be a very, very good deal to get done. When has a lefty not been good in Chicago? As seen by John Danks and Mark Burley, guys who, I grew up watching on the Chicago White Sox. Now, on to the final 2 players on the board. Mason Miller. Now, Mason Miller has had an interesting career. Now, he was drafted in the 3rd round in the MLB. And he was supposed to be a starter when he first came up. And then the next year he comes up All-Star, Rookie of the Year 4. He had 28 saves, 22 the year after. And he was traded to the San Diego Padres where he wasn't even the closer. With a .77 ERA, a 1.12 FIP might be the greatest thing I've ever seen. Oh wait, he had a .44 FIP the year after. With a .788 WHIP. With a .79 ERA. With the most saves in the MLB. This guy might be the best closer I have ever seen. Now, I wasn't really around for Mariano's, prime, as I was, not born or, 3 years old. I don't know. But this is probably the closest thing to the greatest. This would be the greatest closer I've ever seen personally. I mean, look at these stats with the Padres: .78, .67, .768 with a 17 strikeout per nine, dog. 17, 44 games. He has allowed four runners and 21 hits in 45 innings, 45 and 2/3 innings. Bro. Now, could this guy? What is this ad, bro? Could this guy get traded? 2030, he's a free agent. So the top suitors, as always, it's going to be the New York Yankees. Now, if the Padres do this shit, by the way, let's take a quick look at what they did last year. They traded for J.P. Sears and Mason Miller for Henry Baez, Leo DeVries, Brayden Nett, and Eduardo Nunez, who is not very good. This guy is not even on the roster anymore, so I don't think that's much of a player. But Mr. Leo DeVries would be pretty good, as what? He is the number 2 player in baseball, and he's projected to be up in 2026 at 19 years of age. 833 OPS, 13 homers, 48 ribbies. He does strike out quite a bit, but unless this guy is not very good, it would be hard to see this trade not backfiring on this team. If we go back to the Yankees here, now the Yankees are going to have to trade George Lombard Jr. They're going to have to trade Elmer Rodriguez or Carlos LaGrange. This team wants starting pitchers that are close to the MLB level, or MLB ready. Like, I mean, the other team who could be in play, this would be the Seattle Mariners. If they want to buy, they have a ton of starters. Emerson Hancock would make a ton of sense. They have so many starters, man. This is just an ungodly farm system. But none of these guys can hit for whatever reason. They could get Ryan Sloan, they could get Hancock, they could get Arroyo. Something like that would be totally possible if the Mariners decide to buy, but then it messes up the Mariners' chances as this team still can't hit. The other guy. Now, I would say Mason Miller has a 0.1% chance of being traded. Not a chance, man. Not a freaking chance. He has a chance of getting traded. I just can't see any team giving up the price they did or they want. Now, the other guy on his team, wasn't going to talk about him, but free agent 2027. He has 27, 28 player options. Probably for $17 million as well. Again, having a good year. He's been pretty good for San Diego. 3.19, ERA, 3.82, FIP in a 1.187, whip. Now, a 9.3 strikeout per nine, pretty good. Yankees, he really never started. Only 19 games out of 115, which is kind of crazy. His walks per nine obviously higher. Homers per nine at 1 is pretty freaking good. And again, last year he was injured, unfortunately. This year, pretty much back to his full health. 22 starts. Already, this is a guy who could really go anywhere. Again, the Cubs are going to be the top suitor. White Sox, probably not. I think he's just going to be a little expensive. I think, another guy who Tampa Bay could be in for. I think he's another guy even the Rangers could be in on. They have a decent amount to trade. They want MLB ready guys. Michael King, even Seattle too. Emerson Hancock, again, going to be a perfect guy. This is a guy who's definitely getting traded. Emerson Hancock. I think Michael King could be in play. Another starter or hitter. I just don't know who they're going to pursue. Maybe a shortstop, maybe Otto Lopez. We just haven't seen enough from Colt Emerson. J.P. Crawford's not very good. I really don't know. I can't tell where the Mariners are ever going. This is just a team that doesn't make sense to me. Now, the last guy, and the one everyone's been waiting for. I just spat everywhere. Nice one, man. Tariq Skubal. Now, he's a free agent at the end of the year. He's the best pitcher in baseball. He's won 2 Cy Youngs in a row, 2 All-Stars in a row. Wasn't an All-Star this year as he wasn't healthy, and he won the ERA title, what, twice? Yeah. 6.7 WAR, 6.4 WAR with a 2.39, a 2.21, a ridiculous whip both years, best FIP in baseball, highest DRA plus in baseball, 228 strikeouts, 241 strikeouts, and this year he is pretty much right on pace. 2.61 FIP, a .91 WHIP, a 2.79 ERA. Strikeouts per walks, 8.29. Better number than he's ever had, it looks like. So, I don't really get that, to be honest. I mean, 14 walks in 96 innings and 116 strikeouts. That is pretty ridiculous, man. Obviously, probably going to go up a little bit, but this is going to be the most expensive player in a minute that we've seen out there. Now, I pray, man. I pray he doesn't, but we'll get into it in a sec. The Phillies have been rumored to be interested. Now, they would have to give up Gage Wood. Just don't think it's going to happen. I know Dombrowski, when he's wanting a target, he really goes after them. I think more likely it's going to be like Foster Griffin or something like that they go after. I think the Rays have enough to do it, too. I think they do. I think they don't really want a catching prospect. I think Gillen Fleming, probably going to be what it costs to get him. Unfortunately to say, I mean, this is a team that's going to be pretty hesitant to trade him. And then, you got the Dodgers, you got the Brewers. The Brewers have the fucking luxury of every good prospect there is. I would trade, 2 of these top 5 guys. I would trade Jet Williams. I would trade Luis Lara. I think, that probably gets it done. Somehow they don't have a pitcher in the top 8. Pretty miraculous. Not all these guys are going to make the MLB roster for the Brewers. They're going to have to trade them. Tyson Harden, close to MLB ready. Him, Laura, Williams, something like that could totally do it. And unfortunately, that's not the right team. Definitely not. The Dodgers, what? They have, I believe, let's see, I think I'm right. I believe they have 10 prospects in the MLB's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 prospects in the MLB's top 100. Somehow, River Ryan, at 27 years of age, is on this list. Now, I think Emmett Sheehan, totally going to be a guy who could be in this deal. I think he makes a ton of sense to acquire. A guy who's going to be a free agent in 2030. A guy who's been pretty, he was pretty good for them last year, the Dodgers. And this year, he's just, not been as good. I think he's a guy who's pretty talented still. He still has good numbers. Sometimes just not as, can't be super lucky. I mean, this is a team that has 6 outfield prospects here, right? Like, that's freaking insane, man. You have, Tibbs playing first, I guess, now, too. But this is going to take DePaula or Sirota, and this is going to take, probably Zazueta, and probably, another guy like Jackson Ferris, Adam Sorinsky. I hate the Dodgers farm system because they always overrate the Dodgers prospects. I would say this has a 75% chance of getting done. I think in general, I think there's a 95% chance he gets traded. I think there's a 20% chance the Brewers trade for him, and that's my only hope. There's a 5% chance the Tigers are just stupid. They hold on to him because they just don't know what to do. And this would piss me off to no extent, man. I can't see a world where they play baseball next season if Tariq Skubal is if Tariq Skubal is on the Dodgers and re-signs with the Dodgers afterwards. Please, no, man. Please. But that's all for me on this one, Merrill. I hope I'm wrong on some of these. Mainly this one. Please let me be right.